A human body weighs, let's say, 150 pounds. And when that body dies, it still weighs 150 pounds. You put it on a scale right before and right after, and the number doesn't change. Not by a fraction of an ounce. So whatever it is that made that person alive, that made them laugh and argue and fall in love and get angry at traffic, whatever that was, it didn't leave as weight. It didn't float out of the room. The scale says nothing left. And yet, something obviously changed. So I want to ask a very plain question, the kind of question a child would ask, and I want us to treat it with absolute seriousness. Where did the person go? Now, I'm a physicist, and I've been accused more than once of being cold about this kind of thing. People say, Feynman, you take all the mystery out of life. But I think the opposite is true. I think when you actually look at what physics says about this question, honestly and without flinching, what you find is far stranger than any ghost story, far more unsettling, and far more beautiful, though the beauty takes some courage to see. So let's investigate. Let's follow the evidence wherever it goes, even if we don't like the destination. The first thing to understand is that you are made of atoms. That's not a metaphor, that's not poetry. You are literally a collection of atoms. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, a bit of calcium, some phosphorus, traces of iron and zinc and iodine. If I listed every element in your body, it'd be a fairly short list, maybe 24 items. And not one of those atoms is alive. Take a carbon atom out of your finger. Put it on a table. It's just carbon. It doesn't remember being part of you. It doesn't know your name. It has no loyalty. That same carbon atom was a few billion years ago inside a star. It was fused together from hydrogen and helium under temperatures of 15 million degrees in the core of a star that no longer exists. When that star died, it threw its guts across space. Those guts became clouds. The clouds became planets. The planets grew plants. The plants got eaten. And through a chain of events so long and so improbable that no one could have predicted it, that carbon atom ended up in your left hand. And when you die, it will leave and go on to be part of something else. A tree, a mushroom, a river, another person, eventually. The atom does not care. It has no attachment to you whatsoever. So here is our first clue. None of your parts are uniquely yours. Every atom in your body has been borrowed. And in fact, you don't even keep the same atoms throughout your life. You shed them constantly. You breathe out carbon, you sweat out sodium, you shed skin cells by the millions. The atoms in your body right now are almost entirely different from the atoms you had 7 or 8 years ago. You've been slowly replaced piece by piece, like a ship getting new planks while it's still sailing. And yet you still feel like you still remember your childhood. You still have the same bad habits. Something persisted even though the physical material got swapped out completely. What is that something? That's the real mystery. Not what happens to your atoms when you die. We know what happens to your atoms. They get recycled. They go back into the earth, into the air, into the water. The law of conservation of mass guarantees it. Nothing is lost. Nothing is created. The total amount of stuff stays the same. Your atoms are, in a real sense, eternal. They were here before you were born, and they'll be here long after. No problem there. The problem is with you, with the thing that was aware, the thing that looked out through your eyes and had the audacity to think, I exist. Let's follow another lead. Energy. The first law of thermodynamics says energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. So all the energy in your body, the chemical energy stored in your muscles, the electrical signals racing through your nerves, the thermal energy keeping your blood at 98.6 degrees, none of that vanishes when you die. It converts. Your body cools, releasing heat into the surrounding room. Your chemical bonds break apart as bacteria move in and begin the work of decomposition, and that energy gets used. Every joule is accounted for. Physics keeps very clean books, and I've heard people grab onto this and say, see, energy can't be destroyed, so my energy goes somewhere. Maybe that's the soul, and I understand why that's appealing. Conservation of energy sounds like it could mean conservation of you. But let me push on that carefully because this lead is a red herring, and I'll show you exactly why. Think about a candle. A candle flame is bright, it's warm. It's warm, it flickers. It almost seems alive. Watch one long enough and you'll swear it has a personality. It dances when you open a door. It leans toward you like it's curious. Now blow it out. Where did the flame go? Well, the chemical energy went into the surrounding air as heat. The carbon in the wax went up as carbon dioxide. The wax is still sitting there, minus a little bit. Every atom is accounted for, every bit of energy balanced out perfectly. But the flame is gone, not relocated, not floating invisibly in some other room, not transformed into a different kind of flame on some other candle. Gone. The pattern ended. The atoms are all still here. The energy is all still here. But the flame, that specific process, that particular happening, it ceased. And nobody holds a funeral for a candle flame. Nobody asks, but where did the flame go? Because we understand intuitively that a flame is not a thing that can go somewhere. It's a process. It's what happens when certain conditions are met. That when those conditions stop being met, it stops happening. Simple as that. And that word process, that's where this investigation takes a very sharp turn, because it forces us to ask an uncomfortable question about ourselves. Here's what nobody tells you when they talk about the soul in physics. The atoms in your body are not what make you you. The energy in your body is not what makes you you. What makes you you is the arrangement, the specific configuration, the way your 100 trillion cells are organized, the exact wiring pattern of your 86 billion neurons, the precise chemical gradients across every membrane, the particular way your proteins are folded, the pattern of electrical impulses firing across your brain right now, this very second, as you listen to this and try to decide whether you agree with me. You are not your stuff, you are the arrangement of your stuff. And arrangements are fragile. Arrangements are temporary. Arrangements are, in the language of physics, low-entropy states. They are special configurations that exist for a while because energy keeps flowing through them, maintaining their structure against the constant pull of disorder. A sandcastle is an arrangement of sand grains. Knock it over. The sand is still there, every grain accounted for. But the castle is gone. Where did the castle go? Nowhere. It didn't go anywhere. The pattern stopped existing. Now I know that sounds terrifying. I know people don't want to hear that. But let me be careful here, because this is where most people stop thinking. And stopping too early is how you miss the real answer. Let's go deeper, into territory that gets genuinely strange. There's a concept in physics that has become enormously important, and it's the concept of information. Not information like the evening news. Information in the technical sense. The complete description of every particle's position, momentum, spin, and quantum state. The total specification of a physical system, down to the last detail. In classical physics, in Newton's universe, information is always preserved. If you knew the exact state of every particle in the universe at this moment, you could, in principle, calculate backward to find every state it was ever in, and forward to find every state it will ever be in. The laws run perfectly in both directions. Time is reversible. Nothing is truly lost. But then you collide with two problems that complicate this enormously. The first is the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy increases. Ordered states decay into disordered states. A drop of ink falls into a glass of water and spreads out uniformly, and it never spontaneously gathers itself back into a drop. Now, in principle, the information about where each ink molecule started is still there, encoded in the positions and velocities of trillions of water molecules. But in practice, it's been smeared out so thoroughly that no being, no machine, no computer that could ever be built in this universe could reconstruct it. The information isn't destroyed in the strict mathematical sense. It's been scrambled beyond all hope of recovery. Imagine taking a handwritten letter from someone you love. Now run it through a shredder, then burn the shreds. Then scatter the ashes across the ocean. The atoms of that letter still exist. The carbon is still out there. The ink molecules are drifting in the sea. But the message, the meaning, the thing that actually mattered, that's gone. Not because the stuff vanished, because the arrangement did. The second complication is quantum mechanics. And this is where the ground really shifts under your feet. In quantum mechanics, when you observe a system, something irreversible appears to happen. The wave function changes in a way you can't undo. Whether you call that collapse or decoherence or branching depends on which interpretation you subscribe to. And I won't pretend we've settled that argument, we haven't. The black hole information paradox is one version of this same fight. Hawking argued that information falling into a black hole could be genuinely erased from reality. Others pushed back. The debate lasted decades. Some recent theoretical work suggests information is preserved and coded on the event horizon in a way we barely understand. But that's the physics of black holes, which are about as far from your living room as you can get. At the scale of a human brain decaying in a coffin, the practical result is the same. The information gets scrambled into noise. So even if every bit of data about your brain's exact configuration is preserved somewhere in the quantum state of the universe after you die, it's been dissolved into such a hopelessly unrecoverable form that it carries no meaning. You're the love letter after the shredder and the fire and the ocean. The atoms still exist. The information, in some impossibly abstract sense, might still exist. But you, the readable message, the coherent pattern, that's been drowned in static. So let me lay out what we found after following every lead I know how to follow. Your atoms persist. They'll be around for billions of years. Your energy persists. Every joule conserved, transformed, accounted for. In some deep theoretical sense, the information about your arrangement might even persist. But the arrangement itself, the pattern, the staggeringly specific configuration that could look at the world and feel awe and do arithmetic and wonder about death, that ends. It doesn't relocate, it doesn't transmit, it stops. And now comes the part that I think saves this from being the bleakest thing you've ever heard. Because I don't think it's bleak at all. I think people who find this bleak are not looking carefully enough at what they've just been told. The fact that you are a pattern and not a substance means something incredible. It means that the universe, through nothing but the blind, automatic operation of physical law, managed to arrange dead, unconscious matter into a configuration that could contemplate its own existence. Think about how staggering that is. Carbon doesn't want to think. Oxygen has no ambition. Hydrogen couldn't care less about philosophy. And yet, given enough time and the right conditions, these indifferent atoms organize themselves step by step through chemistry and biology and 4 billion years of evolution into a thing that listens to music, a thing that grieves for people it has lost, a thing that stares at the ocean and feels something it can't name. Nobody instructed the atoms to do this. No blueprint was issued. The laws of physics are the same laws that govern falling rocks and cooling coffee and ice forming on a winter pond. And those same laws, running on their own with no supervision, produced Shakespeare, produced Beethoven, produced the person listening to me right now trying to decide whether this makes them feel better or worse. A sunset is not diminished because it ends. A symphony does not lose its meaning because the last note eventually fades into silence. The whole reason it moves you is that it's temporary. If a symphony played forever, without pause, without end, it wouldn't be music anymore. It would be background noise. Duration is not what gives things meaning. Structure gives things meaning. And temporary structures can be the most meaningful of all. People look up at the stars and feel small. They say the universe is so enormous and I am so tiny and it makes me feel like nothing. But stop and ask yourself who is doing the feeling. Who is looking up and grasping the enormity? The stars don't know they're enormous. The galaxies have no sense of their own scale. A nebula that stretches across 50 light years has never once been impressed by itself. Only you can do that. Only this peculiar little arrangement of atoms on this ordinary little rocky planet has the capacity to feel insignificant in the face of the cosmos. And the ability to feel that, to comprehend your own smallness, is the least small thing I've ever encountered. So where does your soul go? I think the question contains a hidden assumption. And the assumption is wrong. It assumes the soul as a substance, a stuff, a thing with a location that can be moved from one container to another, like pouring water from one glass into another. But if physics has taught me anything in all these years, it's that the most important things in nature are not substances. They're relationships, they're processes, they're patterns. A wave is not a thing separate from the water. A song is not a thing separate from the vibrating air. A flame is not a thing separate from the combustion. They are happenings, events, verbs, not nouns, and so are you. You are not a ghost riding around in a meat machine, waiting for the machine to break so you can escape. You are what happens when matter is arranged in this particular, astonishing, unrepeatable way. When the arrangement ceases, the happening ceases. Not because something was stolen from you, but because you are the arranging itself. You are the verb, Your atoms will go on, carrying no memory of you into the soil and the rain and the sea. They will become parts of other patterns. Some of those patterns will be alive. Some might even think, and none of them will be you. But all of them will be made of the same ancient material, following the same blind laws, playing out the same physics that once, for a brief and staggering interval, arranged itself into something that could sit in a room and hear a lecture and argue with it, and feel something about it afterward. That is not a terrifying discovery. That is the most extraordinary thing I have come across in all my years of studying the physical world. The universe is not indifferent to you. The universe became you for a little while, and then it moves on because that is what the laws require. And the laws are beautiful, even when they cost us something. Sit with that for a moment. If someone asked you to put into one sentence what physics actually tells us about the soul, what would your sentence be?